I just went to school, and I used to make a joke about moving so much that at the end of each school year, my dad would stand me in the driveway and say, "Son, Tom Hanks is called America's dad and is the nicest man in Hollywood." But in 1989, something happened on a movie set that changed the story, something that one famous director still refuses to fully talk about. He was fired after only 13 days. Years later, he said he got along better with the dog than with the star, and when asked if he meant Tom Hanks, he only laughed. That wasn't the only unusual moment. By 2020, cameras caught something at the Golden Globes that went viral within seconds. Today, the truth about the people America's dad may have clashed with is finally coming out. Tom Hanks was born on July 9, 1956, in Concord, California, into a family that never really settled in one place. His mother, Janet Marilyn Frager, worked at a hospital and came from Portuguese roots, while his father, Amos Mefford Hanks, was a cook who traveled constantly for work. In 1960, Tom's parents divorced. Tom and his two older siblings went with their father, while the youngest brother stayed with their mother in Red Bluff. From that point, the family was split, and Tom grew up knowing part of his life always existed in another town. By the time he was 10, he had already lived in about 10 different houses across California and Nevada. Every new house meant a new school, new beds, new kitchens, and new faces. Both of his parents remarried multiple times, and along the way, he gained about 11 step-siblings. Looking back, Tom would later call his childhood fractured, saying he often felt like he fell through the cracks. Moving so frequently made him the kid who could pack all his belongings into a few boxes, carry them to a car, and start over almost immediately. This constant resetting of his life quietly trained him to walk into any room and understand the dynamics before anyone even knew his name. Despite all the chaos, he was not a star in school. He wasn't a top athlete or the popular class clown. Tom later described himself as a geek and a spaz and remembered being painfully shy. Teachers hardly noticed him until the lights went off and a film projector clicked on. That was when something inside him came alive. From the back of the classroom, he would throw out funny lines timed with the images on the screen. This was his first taste of performing, early stand-up from the last row of chairs. While his classmates didn't see him as a future star, he was already learning to read a room and adjust his timing. These skills were born out of all those sudden moves in new classrooms. Beneath the shy, joking exterior, Tom was also a teenager trying to make sense of life through religion. His upbringing mixed Catholic and Mormon influences, and the constant changes in his home life made his spiritual life feel uncertain. During his years at Skyline High School in Oakland in the early 1970s, he threw himself fully into religion. He became what he later described as a Bible-toting evangelical, carrying a Bible around school, talking about being born again, and trying to live each day according to sin and forgiveness, even while classmates focused on parties and prom. This wasn't a passing phase. For several years, he attended church, wrestled with faith, and tried to use God to make sense of divorce, distance, and constant motion. The divorce had left more than emotional cracks, it physically separated family members. Tom lived with his father, while his mother and youngest brother stayed in Red Bluff, a small town in Northern California. To him, it was always at the end of long bus rides and rare visits. He has spoken about these trips as central childhood memories. At 8 or 9, he would sit alone on Greyhound-style buses, carrying his own bag, buying his own ticket, and watching strangers get on and off as he moved between his parents. Because his father worked nights and moved frequently, Tom learned to navigate adult spaces alone. He walked city streets, waited in theaters, sat in bus stations, and entered new schools where nobody knew him. On paper, this may have looked like neglect. In practice, it became preparation for the life he would later lead as an actor, constantly traveling, arriving in unfamiliar places, and figuring out how to fit in by nightfall. The turning point came when the shy boy carrying a Bible walked into the drama department at Skyline High. Around 1972 to 1974, he began appearing in school plays, including the musical South Pacific. At first, he wasn't the lead. A teacher later said he was the energy on stage, the person who made scenes feel alive, even in smaller roles. That experience was enough to spark a passion. He became obsessed, going alone to see plays in downtown Oakland and nearby cities, sometimes driving himself as a teenager and observing how adult actors behaved on and off the stage. By his junior and senior years, he was winning school acting awards and treating the auditorium as a second home. This path led him into community theater, an internship with a Shakespeare festival in Cleveland, and ultimately the emotional depth that would define performances in films like Philadelphia in 1993 and Forrest Gump in 1994. Before reaching that point, Hollywood tried to put him in a box. After the TV show Bosom Buddies ended in 1982, Tom Hanks wasn't yet America's dad. He became the go-to actor for noisy, mid-budget comedies throughout the 1980s. In 1984, he starred in Splash, a romantic fantasy about a man who falls in love with a mermaid, which cost about $11 million to make and earned around $70 million worldwide, along with Bachelor Party, a wild bachelor comedy. Over the next few years, he appeared in The Money Pit in 1986, Dragnet in 1987, and The BBS in 1989, often playing stressed suburban men, overgrown boys, or panicked victims of comic chaos. Inside the industry, people recognized his talent but saw him as limited. He was considered perfect for slapstick, shouting in kitchens, or tumbling down stairs, but not for delivering serious courtroom speeches. Splash in 1984 reinforced that typecasting. It opened with about $6.2 million in its first weekend in North America and ultimately earned around $70 million on an $11 million budget. Critics praised him for his everyman charm, giving the film a 91% score on Rotten Tomatoes. That success made studios see him as a safe comedy lead and forget that he could do more. Just a few years out of a television flop, his name became a tool for rescuing weak scripts. The real change came with Big in June 1988. This body swap story cost about $18 million to make and earned roughly $115 million in the US and $151.7 million worldwide, more than 8 times its budget. The film stayed popular so long that its adjusted domestic gross later surpassed $316 million. Hanks' performance as 12-year-old Josh Baskin in A Grown Man's Body earned him his first Oscar nomination for Best Actor at the 61st Academy Awards in 1989. Light comedies rarely earn that kind of attention. The role almost went to Harrison Ford, and only later did people realize how differently Hanks' career could have gone without Big. Between these peaks, many films struggled. Bachelor Party, The Money Pit, and Dragnet often had weak scripts, leaving Hanks as the only lively element. Critics praised him but dismissed the films. Studios saw a reliable comic figure to fit a formula, while critics saw a serious actor stuck in throwaway projects. This created tension between his natural warmth and the mediocre scripts surrounding him. By the late 1980s, that tension caught up. Darker comedies like The BBS in 1989, The Surreal Joe vs. the Volcano in 1990, and the prestige film The Bonfire of the Vanities in 1990 all struggled. Bonfire, adapted from Tom Wolfe's best-selling novel and full of stars, bombed despite a huge budget. Critics said Hanks was miscast as a greedy Wall Street trader. Suddenly, he seemed risky rather than charming, and some called him box office poison. During this slump, an odd little cop comedy, Turner and Hooch, became a minor success but also sparked drama behind the camera. Released in 1989, it was his only solid box office hit during that period, earning over $70 million worldwide. The story is remembered more for what happened on set than for the movie itself. Henry Winkler had been hired as director and spent about 11 weeks preparing. He bonded with the dog playing Hooch, calling it his partner. During location scouting in Carmel, California, a woman rushed out of a shop, shouting for Winkler and ignoring Hanks. Winkler later remembered the shift in energy and felt it had quietly hurt the working relationship. Filming began, but Winkler lasted only 13 days as director before Disney executive Jeffrey Katzenberg called him in, asked if he had all his belongings, and told him to go home. He had invested nearly 3 months, counting preparation, into a film that would succeed without his name attached. Years later, Winkler described bonding with the dog rather than the human star and joked about the tension, but he never fully named Hanks. Ron Howard, who had worked with both men, said they came to him separately to talk about the conflict, but their working styles simply didn't match. Today, Hanks has never publicly shared his side, and no reunion or joint project has happened since. Despite these challenges in the 1980s, the 1990s brought a dramatic shift. It began with a baseball film set in 1943. In 1992, Hanks played Jimmy Dugan in A League of Their Own, a former star whose career ended early because of knee injuries. This role, like others soon after, began to cement his reputation as America's dad, a performer capable of blending humor, emotion, and warmth in ways that drew audiences in. After years of moving, reading rooms, surviving fractured childhoods, wrestling with faith, and navigating Hollywood's highs and lows, Tom Hanks had become the actor who could turn even chaotic circumstances into charm and relatability, slowly transforming from a funny, shy kid in the back of a classroom into one of the most beloved actors in the world. In A League of Their Own, Hanks played Jimmy Dugan, the coach of the Rockford Peaches in the Women's Baseball League during World War II. At the start of the movie, he staggers onto the field drunk, swears constantly, and delivers a now-famous 53-second bathroom scene that seems to go on forever. The film runs for 2 hours and 8 minutes and earned more than $132 million worldwide. Beneath the jokes and shouting, Hanks brought depth to the character, showing a man who was wounded, tired, and defeated. Dugan was loosely based on real major league players who drank their careers away. Audiences responded to this side of Hanks, willing to follow him into a role that was angry, bitter, and broken, not just goofy and sweet. 1 year later, he took an even bigger risk with Philadelphia in 1993. He played Andrew Beckett, a gay lawyer with AIDS who sues his powerful law firm for firing him. At the time, more than 32,000 Americans were dying of AIDS each year, and homophobia was still common in mainstream culture. Columbia Pictures released the film on December 22, 1993, featuring Hanks in a dramatically different role. He lost weight for the part, showed the signs of Kaposi's sarcoma lesions, and even shared an on-screen kiss with Antonio Banderas. It was a huge departure from the funny, charming roles audiences were used to. The risk paid off. At the 66th Academy Awards on March 21, 1994, Hanks won his first Oscar for Best Actor. In his speech, he named his former high school drama teacher, Raleigh Farnsworth, and a classmate, John Gilkerson, both of whom were gay, turning a simple Hollywood thank you into a moment of queer visibility that millions of Americans witnessed. The very next year, Hanks starred in Forrest Gump, which opened on July 6, 1994, and ran for 2 hours and 22 minutes. The film cleverly mixed American history with fiction. Forrest meets Presidents Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, witnesses the Watergate scandal, influences a dance move used by Elvis, and repeats the now-famous line comparing life to a box of chocolates. Forrest Gump cost about $55 million to make but earned more than $600 million worldwide, becoming one of the biggest hits of the 1990s. At the 67th Academy Awards in 1995, Hanks won his second consecutive Best Actor Oscar. Only Spencer Tracy, in 1937 and 1938, had achieved back-to-back Best Actor wins before him. Overnight, he became the face of gentle, reliable American goodness for audiences around the world. By the mid-1990s, he was no longer the uncertain comedy actor of the previous decade. Studios now called on him whenever they needed someone the audience would trust under pressure. In Apollo 13, released on June 30, 1995, he played astronaut Jim Lovell, guiding a damaged mission after an oxygen tank explosion and delivering the calm, iconic line, "Houston, we have a problem." The film earned over $355 million at the box office, with a $55 million production budget, and received 9 Oscar nominations. 3 years later, in Saving Private Ryan, July 24, 1998, Hanks played Captain John Miller, a schoolteacher turned army officer who leads a small group of soldiers through the ruins of Normandy to find one surviving brother. The Omaha Beach landing sequence lasted 24 minutes and became legendary for its raw depiction of violence. Yet it was Hanks' quiet, exhausted performance at the end that cemented his America's Dad image, the man who carries the weight of responsibility, does the right thing, and pays the price. During this time, Hanks also began producing films with his wife, Rita Wilson, and partner Gary Goetzman. Together, they produced My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which opened quietly in April 2002 with a modest $5 million budget and slowly became a global phenomenon, eventually earning $368 million worldwide. Success brought conflict, too. In August 2007, Hanks, Wilson, Novardalos, and Goetzman filed a lawsuit against Gold Circle Films, claiming the company had hidden their share of net profits. The case highlighted Hollywood accounting practices, proving that even a beloved star like Hanks could find himself fighting in court over money. Alongside his acting and producing, Hanks also became the voice of Woody in Pixar's Toy Story, which released on November 22, 1995. Over 4 main films between 1995 and 2019, Woody, the pull-string cowboy, became the anxious but loyal leader who always puts his child first. Critics noted that Woody's unwavering loyalty reflected the qualities everyone wants in a friend. Interestingly, many of the Woody voices heard in toys, commercials, and smaller projects are not actually Tom Hanks, but his brother Jim Hanks, who matches the tone and warmth perfectly. For children born after 1990, the voice that guides them through moral lessons and tells them the right thing to do often comes from Woody's gentle tone rather than a parent or teacher. Hanks' personal life is part of the story, too. He has been married to Rita Wilson since April 30, 1988. They have 2 sons together, and Hanks also has 2 older children from his first marriage. Unlike many Hollywood stars, there have been no public cheating scandals or rehab collapses in almost 4 decades. Reporters often highlight his habits, like collecting typewriters, studying space and World War II history, and reading presidential biographies. In an industry filled with divorce, controversy, and public meltdowns, Hanks' steadiness stands out. He has openly admitted that his first marriage, at 23, ended because he was too young and insecure to handle it. His later stability feels earned rather than accidental. His image of reliability extends to how he treats people. He stands in line at airports, chats with crew members, and obsesses over small historical details. The result is a picture of a polite neighbor who happens to have 2 Oscars. This image carries into his film roles. He repeatedly plays men audiences can trust: the schoolteacher in Saving Private Ryan, the astronaut in Apollo 13, the ship captain in Captain Phillips, 2013, the pilot in Sully, 2016, and Mr. Rogers in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, 2019. By choosing these roles and avoiding villains or anti-heroes, Hanks has carefully curated the version of himself the public sees. But even America's Dad has moments where the mask slips. In June 2022, leaving a restaurant in New York City with Rita Wilson, Hanks confronted a crowd pressing too close. Video footage shows Wilson stumbling as people bumped her. Hanks spun around and shouted, "Back off." No one was arrested, and the couple left safely, yet entertainment sites replayed the clip endlessly, highlighting Hanks swearing in public. For most stars, such a moment would be forgotten quickly. For Hanks, it sparked debate about whether America's Dad could lose his patience. This control over his image also extends to his production company, Playtone. Hanks takes an active role in choosing projects, which helps maintain his consistent persona. He avoids darker roles and rarely overshares publicly, ensuring that the world sees the version of Tom Hanks he wants to present. Critics note that this can flatten the real person behind the brand. Hanks grew up in a divided family, rushed into marriage at 23, divorced, remarried at 32, and speaks openly about therapy, faith, and insecurity. Yet in public, he appears as the endlessly patient father figure who always knows what to say. Even small moments on live television can reveal cracks. At the 2011 Golden Globes, Ricky Gervais introduced the presenters by contrasting Hanks with Tim Allen. Hanks responded live, teasing Gervais about his weight and personality changes over the years. It lasted less than 30 seconds but showed irritation, a subtle break from his usual calm, kind demeanor. By January 5, 2020, the tension was more visible. Gervais returned to host the Golden Globes, and cameras captured Hank's stiff, uncomfortable reaction every time a joke hit too close to home. 1-second-long shot of his reaction went viral, creating the now famous Tom Hanks reaction face, used across social media as a symbol of discomfort or mild offense. Commentators suggested it showed that even the nicest man in Hollywood could feel entitled or above certain jokes. Public perception of Hanks shifted further when he spoke out on politics. In 2008, he supported Barack Obama and criticized California's Proposition 8, which banned same-sex marriage. He specifically called out Mormons who backed the measure, using the word un-American, which caused immediate backlash. He later apologized, saying he spoke hastily. Conservative media began framing him as a liberal Hollywood elite, contrasting his roles as an all-American figure with his political opinions. By the mid-2010s, Hollywood liberal Tom Hanks had become a familiar phrase on right-wing talk shows. Some commentators argued his films could no longer be seen as neutral comfort movies because of his outspoken views. The tension resurfaced in February 2025 during NBC's SNL 50th anniversary special. Hanks reprised a sketch role as Doug, a working-class Trump voter, wearing a red MAGA hat. A brief hesitation when shaking hands with Kenan Thompson was captured on camera, and clips went viral, sparking accusations of elitism and insensitivity. Right-wing media framed him as a Hollywood elite mocking ordinary Americans. Within 24 hours, reaction videos flooded social media, portraying him as condescending, even to the audiences who had once embraced him in Forrest Gump and Cast Away. For the first time in decades, the image of America's dad looked fragile rather than unbreakable. Hanks' career and public persona show how carefully he has curated his image, moving through Hollywood as a reliable, comforting presence. Yet moments like the Golden Globes reactions, public political statements, and viral SNL clips remind the world that even the nicest, most trusted figures have limits. The same man who once seemed untouchable now appears more human, proving that no public image is truly immune to scrutiny or criticism.